And queen takes f3. Oh, what is going on? Oh, this is going to be a fortress. I just don't see any hopes at all. This is very easy. Just rook back and forth.
Taking chess to the next level.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, yeah. Nothing else to say. Wow.
Creating the future of the sport. Introducing the Champions Chess Tour. 10 months, 10 tournaments. The world's best players online and on TV.
And queen takes f3.
Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Liem, and I am today doing the show my favorite games. And the game I am going to show you guys today is one of my wins last year. Sorry, actually 2 years ago in 2019. So this was very memorable to me because this is in St. Louis, the city where I'm living now, and this is one of the top tournaments there, which is called the St. Louis Summer Chess Classic, and this was a 6-player double round robin, so 10 games. This game was played in round 9, and I was white. My opponent was Grandmaster Gawain Jones. So the tournament situation was that I needed to win this game to have any chance of winning the tournament, and I managed to achieve that. So let's see this game. I started first with e4, e5, he played. So this is his usual opening choice. He wants to play Spanish, and he wants to go for this variation. So here white has many choices here, but for this game I didn't feel like testing him in deep theoretical variations, so I decided to go for kind of an not popular move, bishop c6, d3, and this looks like the anti-Berlin, one of the variation where white also take on c6, dc, castle. The only difference is the pawn in that variation is on a7, and now it is on a6. Not a big difference here. So after d3, my opponents play bishop d6, but he could also play bishop g4 or queen e7 here. This is perfectly playable. Same with bishop g4. So after bishop d6, I went with knight bd2. This is also a typical plan to get my knight to c4. So already around here, I feel that my opponent was not very comfortable in this position because he normally doesn't play the Berlin for black, and forcing him to go to this type of position seems like the best chance for me. So 97 is a prophylactic move. I guess he wanted to play f6 here. So after 97, I continue with a4, which is also a typical idea in the anti-Berlin. And particularly here, because in the other variation, when the pawn is on a7, a5 is not really a big threat, but right now it is kind of a positional threat. I may be able to fix his pawn structure here, and that's why he played a5. So I continue with knight c4, knight takes c4, sorry, bishop takes c4, b takes c4, castle. So this is the start of the middle game, and looking at this position, we wouldn't think that it is much to play for. We do think, okay, it's a very dry position. Both sides have 8 pawns. Not much is going on here. But actually, it's quite interesting because looking at it from a strategical point of view, you could say that white has some small advantage here. even though the computer may not really understand it. The thing is, white has a better control in the center, and white always has idea to play either c3, d4, or g3, f4 after moving the knight somewhere like e1, g2, or h4, f5. So something like this. Black, on the other hand, what is black's design setup? So black really wants to get the knight to e6. The knight on d7 is not doing much here. He wants to get the knight to e6 either by this way or to f8 and e6. And then with the knight on e6, it would control everything, the two most important squares that white can break through with d4 and f4. The knights would be perfectly placed there. But the black's main problem is the bishop, because it cannot really be active. It has to stay on d6 to defend e5. The best square is actually maybe if the bishop can drop back to f8, go to g7, and defend the pawn from here. It would be better control of the center, and then black can try to bring on the two rooks to the center. Or another plan, however, this is much more difficult to achieve, is to play with b5. This is difficult to achieve because now the pawn is on a5 and not on a6. If the pawn was on, let's say, a7 and b7, then black can achieve that with something like b6, a6, rook b8, and then b5. And if black managed to play b5, it's kind of equal. So, but right now it's very difficult because I have both my pawns here. So I started first with bringing piece to the play, and the idea is, well, just to activate the rook first. I'm not really threatening rook takes b7 because, yeah, he played rook e8, and this is a trap, because if I took on b7, then I b6, and then queen c8 trap the rooks, and black would be much better here. So I didn't take on b7, but I continued with c3 with my plan, and now he played b6. So once he played b6, he's trying to get the queen here. So he wants to get the queen to f6, knight to f8, knight to e6. That's his plan. So that's why my next move was bishop g5, just to provoke f6 and kind of make it a little bit harder for black to bring his pieces into the best squares. So the idea is, if f6, I go back bishop e3, which is the best square for my bishop, and then I go knight h4. Now that this diagonal is closed, I can go knight h4, knight f5, and maybe play g3, and slowly somehow like queen c2, rook d1, or rook e1, and either d4 or f4. I would say that white is a little bit better, but I don't see much going on here. Like black is very solid with rook e8, queen f7, knight e6, and it's extremely difficult for white to create something here. My opponent played bishop e7 because he did not want to commit with a slight weakening of the king side. So he played bishop e7. Now I went back to e3. And here, bishop f6, I think this is a slightly inaccurate move for black. The reason is that the bishop doesn't really belong to that square. I could play bishop c5 here for black, just offering the trade of the bishops. And the idea is, if white play d4, then black take, and black has a very good square for the bishop on on b4. And now this pawn is weak. If I go like queen c2, he can go queen e7. If e5, he has c5, and he managed to trade off one of his double pawns for my central pawns, and this is already pretty nice for black. So my opponents play bishop f6 and not bishop c5, which I don't understand why, but I think it's already pretty nice for me. Then I go queen c2, and this is the threat to play d4 now. So my opponent had to play c5 to stop that. Now d4 no longer works for white because anytime white plays c4, black can just take twice with both the pawns on c4, and then he gets a very nice square for the knight on c5. So now d4 doesn't make any sense for white. But at the same time, this c5 move takes away the c5 square for the knight. So his knight is not that active right now, and it's extremely difficult to prepare b5. So he's solid, but at the same time, he's very passive here. And now my plan switches to the king side. Now I cannot play d4, but I can play f4. So that's what I prepare. I continue with g3, and then knight e1, bringing my knight back and prepare for f4. Black's main issue here is that he's not in time to meet f4 with f5. If he can play like queen d7, g6, bishop g7, if he has like 3 moves to do that, then he would be fine, because then whenever I play f4, he play f5, and he trade off the central pawns, and it's completely equal. But the problem is he's not in time to do that. And now after I play f4, if he doesn't take ef, then I am going to play f5, and then g4, g5 with a very strong attack here on the king side. So that's why he had to take ef, gf, and then he tried to bring the rook to the center. So here is an interesting moment here, because now I have to decide what to do with my central pawns. Instead of rook d8, by the way, he could play something like knight g6, with the idea maybe to get a knight to h4, and then bishop move somewhere and f5. Yeah, something like that. And if I play f5, he can go like knight 5, then rook d8, and attack d3. So e5 would be a wonderful square for the knight if it can get there. But the problem with knight g6 is that I can go e5, and then although he doesn't have to move the bishop right now, he can go like knight h4, then I go d4, cd, cd. And it looks like I have a very strong center here. When I just come into f3, pawn can come to d5. It is not lost for black by any means. I can go back like this and put a bishop on b4, which is very nice. However, the center is really powerful for white now, and I think I would take white here. So instead of knight g6, my opponent went for rook d8, and here this is the move that I am most proud of in this entire game, because this is the moment that I play f5. Well, first, when you look at this move, you couldn't be impressed, and that's natural. Why? Because, okay, what does it attack, right? It doesn't attack any piece. It doesn't create anything. So why would I play f5? The point is, if I don't play f5, it's kind of difficult to connect my 2 rooks, because my knight has to stay here to defend this pawn, and he's having right now threatening bishop h4, try to attack this knight. If I don't play f5, this queen might also come to h3, knight can also come to g6 and e5. So with this move f5, what does it do? First of all, it cuts off this queen h3 or queen g4, and also knight g6 to control this. It's true, I give up this e5 square for his bishop or his knight, but I realized that even if he could put a knight there, it's really not doing much, and it's gonna take him at least a few moves to get the knight there. So maybe he has to play like queen here, knight d7, knight e5, but at the same time, he doesn't have this idea with f5 anymore, and I can slowly build up my attack on the king side. So I can go like rook f3, rook g3, or rook h3, king h1, bishop f4, maybe knight g2, rook g1, and then my knight can try to on the way counter d5. Because it's going to be difficult for him to prevent knight d5 once I get my knight to f4 or e3. So after f5, he play h6, a prophylactic move, trying to get the knight here, maybe bishop g5. So I continue with rook f3. He played knight h7, and then bishop f4, defending for the rook to defend d3, so my knight can get to g2. So you guys can see that I play this move. The point is to activate my knight, connect my rooks, focus my pieces to the king side, and prepare my knight to come to d5. So yes, finally he got his knight to f6 and his bishop to e5, but that doesn't change anything because my central pawns are very solid here. They protect each other very well, and he doesn't have any counterplay. So although the material is still equal, it's already very, very difficult here for black because black is very passive, and white's attack can be extremely dangerous on the king side. So no rush. I play a prophylactic move with king h1, preparing for rook h3 and rook g1. So I didn't do anything special, but look at his position. It's just getting very, very difficult by each move. So here I think it's already a difficult position. I think he has to take on f4 and go like queen e5, but it's not an easy decision to make. So he make I think this rook e8 was the final mistake. He was like making natural looking move, putting pressure on d3. But the problem with rook e8 is that now I just take on e5 and went back knight to e1. And this is the second move that I'm also very proud of in this game. The idea of knight e1 is just first to defend d3, and second to prepare knight f3, e5. And now both my rooks are very active and attacking directly on his king side. The queen can also swing over to g2 or d2 or c1 and attack these two pawns. So after knight e1, he had to play knight e8 to defend the king side. Yeah, I think knight e4 I have a trick. Knight e4 here I have de, rook d2, and then I have this knight f3 trick, which wins the game immediately for me. So that's why he couldn't do that, but he had to go back knight e8, and then we repeated the move one time, and then I found the killer move with queen to c1. And this is the move that initially I missed because, well, first of all, I thought, oh, maybe he could take on d3. But the point is, of course, rook d3 runs into queen takes h6, and I'm winning immediately here. G takes, rook take, and this is checkmate. So queen c1, and the threat is still knight f3 and then e5. Why not knight f3 immediately? Because if knight f3, then he has queen f4, and this is a good square for his queen. So queen c1 came with a prophylactic thinking. I wanted to make sure that he doesn't have queen f4, and this knight f3 is a very annoying threat. So right now it's already pretty bad for black. He played queen e7, then I continue with queen f4 again, preparing for e5. F6 now doesn't work because of rook takes. Check here and wait on the next move. So after queen f4, I'm threatening e5, and he has no way to defend. He has to play queen d7, then e5, and this is now the knight can come to f3. I can give up the d3 finally, but now he has no defense on the king side with my queen. My rook attack this rook and this pawn. So when you see pieces like this, I have like 4 attacking pieces against only his king here. Okay, he has maybe the knight to defend, but that's no way near enough. So this is already pretty bad for black. And again, the threat is queen takes h6. So a move like rook f3, I can just take h6, and this is checkmate. So if king h7, I have rook g7, and again queen h6, and checkmate on the next move. So after f6, it's already lost for black here. He played king g8, and I took h6, and he resigned because he cannot defend against the mate. So this win was very important to me because after this win, I managed to make a draw in the last game, and I won the tournament clear first. And this was a very memorable tournament because, yeah, in May or June of 2019, I won 3 tournaments in a row, and this was the second one. So first one was the Asian Continental Championship. The second one was this St. Louis Summer Chess Classic, and the third one was the World Open. So, but all the tournaments were so strong, and winning them all was really important to me. So what I like about this game is that my play in the middle game, it seems like just maneuvering. Some people would say it's random move, but actually I managed to find some really nice ideas there. And although black didn't make any real mistakes, any obvious mistakes, but his position just became more and more difficult every move. I'm thinking probably an improvement would be bishop h4 here instead of h6, but yeah, in this case I have to allow him to trade my bishop like this, and then maybe he can go like 26, 97, 95. Maybe this could be a better way to hold, but honestly, it kind of similar to the game, and I would still take white here. The only issue is how I activate this rook. So yeah, in the game I managed to activate that rook, connected my pieces, and organize a huge attack on the king side, which at the beginning didn't look very threatening. So yeah, so that's why I like this game, and I hope that by sharing it with you guys, you learn something, and let me know what you think about this. So thank you very much for following the stream, and I will see you guys the next time.